Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we're just gonna finish off this chapter, chapter 7, and then we'll make a start with chapter 8. So good progress, guys. Okay. So dreams, wasn't it? Dreams, dreams within dreams. Uh the universe being a dream within a dream, amongst other things, I think. Like we covered quite a bit, mashallah. But this section is to do with the manifestation of the impossible. The impossible does not manifest except within the realm of imagination, which is an astonishing thing. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, we reached this paragraph, and if I'm wrong, guys, please tell me, okay? Okay, so according to the principles of peripatetic philosophies, that means Aristotle's philosophy, the impossible cannot come into existence. In contrast to the possible, which may or may not come into existence, and the necessary, which cannot not exist. But imagination, um, so of course the peripatetic philosophers could also be the Islamic philosophers too, right? The rational Islamic philosophers. But imagination is a domain in which contraries meet and impossible things take place. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Okay. The rational faculty holds to the principles of its philosophy, but imagination observes contradictory and mutually exclusive things actually occurring. So then Sheikh Al-Akbar says, in reality, imagination is one of the presences of sense perception, since it joins meanings to sensory forms, right? If you're familiar by now, with the levels of existence, the world of meaning versus the world of physical forms, then they don't meet. So it's through imagination that they join together because they're like total opposites, right? The world of meanings and spirits versus the world of physical forms. Hence, the impossible is imagined as a sensory thing and it comes into existence in the hereafter, or whatever God desires, as a sensory thing. Right, guys? Let me just repeat that. So, imagination uses sensory objects. And it is also the case that the impossible can enter into imagination, at least according to Ibn al-Arabi. It therefore follows that the impossible within imagination will manifest as something sensory. Okay? Especially in the hereafter. What's the hereafter? The next life. Or whatever God, or wherever God desires. Okay? That is why this takes place in the hereafter, al-akhirah, not the here before, al-ula. So he's playing on the words. Al-ula is this life, but he's playing on the linguistic sense of those words. The akhirah is the day of judgment, but a literal translation is just the next one, the coming next one, right? So this is why this takes place in the hereafter, not the here before. For imagination stands in a degree which is posterior to sense perception. Imagination stands in a degree which is posterior to sense perception. So in philosophy, posterior is what comes after, as opposed to what's a priori. Posterior is what logically comes after. So imagination has to logically come after sensory things, after sense perception. Why is that the case? Why is
Because
that the case?
it uses it, right? For instance, it uses images.
It uses it, doesn't it? Yes.
Yeah. And so we have to,
Good. Good.
um,
Exactly. Yeah, thank you very much, Ravina. That's exactly it. So when one dreams of milk and one interprets the milk in the dream, which is the realm of imagination, to mean knowledge, right? You have to have seen a carton of milk first, a container of milk, before you can dream of milk as being knowledge. So imagination is posterior to sense perception. Since it takes the forms with which it clothes the impossible and other things from sense perception. So now we come back to the subject of the impossible. Hence, wherever it is found, it is only found in the hereafter, what comes next. So pay heed. This is a very interesting point. So imagination, by definition, is strongest in the next life, because the next life is the hereafter, because the nature, the very philosophical nature of imagination is to be what comes next. That is its reality. Which faculty is more tremendous than that which makes the thing which cannot possibly exist into an existent sensory thing which can be seen? For example, a corporeal body exists simultaneously in two places. Just as this is imagined here, so it happens likewise in sense perception in the hereafter. Did you guys get this paragraph or not? So, in your mind, you can be sitting in a room, your house, but in your mind, you are enjoying yourself on the beach next to the ocean, right? That's possible now, right? You're sitting in one place and your mind goes somewhere else. You're imagining yourself somewhere else, right?
Yes, it's
Okay.
possible.
In the next life, that happens literally. You can be in two places at once. In the next life, you're in two places at once, literally. That's impossible. But that's what happens in the hereafter. In the hereafter, the impossible manifests. So you're sitting in a room, plus you're somewhere else at the exact same time. Hi, Hannah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay. Salam, Hannah. Like we're talking about the manifestation of the impossible, Hannah, and that just reminded me of what we discussed a few lessons ago about how weird it is that the impossible can have its own kingdom, right? Um, so Hannah can even probably tell you a few stories about Sheikh Nazim, because we're talking about the manifestation of the impossible here, Hannah. Like in this world, you can imagine yourself as being somewhere else, but you're sitting in a room right now, but your mind is like you're in the Maldives. But in the hereafter, you could literally be in the Maldives plus sitting in a room at the same time, two places at once, which is impossible. So anyone who wants to know more about that can ask stories about Sheikh Nazim, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right? So this is about the manifestation of the impossible. The levels have interpenetrated, and the impossible thing has been made into the possible thing that is joined to its level. The levels have interpenetrated. Extraordinary. Because now the impossible becomes possible, because it just happened, right? In imagination. Whilst the possible thing has become joined to the level of the impossible thing. The reason for this is the penetration of the real into creation and creation into the real through self-disclosure in the divine and engendered names. So the situation is the real in one respect, creation in another respect, in each and every engendered thing. The divine presence comprehends the property of the real in creation and creation in the real. And nothing gets more impossible than that. How wide is the presence of imagination? Within it becomes manifest the existence of the impossible thing, or rather, nothing becomes manifest within it in verification except the existence of the impossible thing. For the necessary being who is God does not receive forms, yet he becomes manifest in forms in this presence. Thereby, impossible existence has received existence in this presence. Within it, corporeal bodies are seen in two places, as Adam saw himself outside the hand of the real. This is referring to a hadith Qudsi, a transmitted prophetic tradition, in which when Adam is created, alayhi salam, he sees God, and God commands him, "Oh Adam," and then God holds out both his hands, and both his hands are closed, right? And then he says, "Choose from one of these two hands to see your progeny." And then Adam says, "I choose from the right hand of my Lord because um, the right has all the goodness, and both my Lord's hands are right." Yeah. So in that tradition, he sees his progeny in God's hand, plus he sees his progeny outside the hand. So how can the progeny be in his hand and outside his hand at the same time? Yet that's exactly what he sees. Um, by the way, it's funny that we have this tradition about two closed hands. Then he says, pick one. So if every in your life you play a game of like pick a hand that has some kind of divine origin, weirdly enough. Yet when the real opened his hand, Adam and his seed were within it. So he was in the hand, and he himself was outside the hand. So Adam could see himself and his progeny outside the hand. In such a way, this presence perceives only the existence of impossible things. In the same way, a person is sleeping in his home. A person is sleeping in his home, and he sees himself in his ordinary form in another city and another situation, excuse me, and in another situation, contrary to his own situation. Tina, red pill, blue pill. Funny you should mention that because that's what the book I took a picture of and put it in the chat room is all about. Becoming dungeon master. Yes, it certainly is a red pill, blue pill situation from the Matrix. Yet for him who recognizes the situation of existence as it is, that is he. Uh, sorry, I should read that again. Yet for him who recognizes the situation of existence as it is, that is he, nothing else. That's him. Were it not for the trace of imagination, rational thinkers would not be able to suppose the impossible. Like you wouldn't be able to like think about it when seeking a proof for something. For if the impossible did not receive existence in some presence, it could not be supposed or presumed. Like you wouldn't be able to think about it, period. So it has to have some kind of existence, even if it's a shady existence. Sleep is a state in which the servant passes from the witnessing of the world of sense perception to the world of the barzakh, which is the most perfect world. There is no world more perfect, since it is the root of the origin of the cosmos. It possesses true existence and controlling rule, tahakkum, in all affairs. It embodies meanings and changes that which does not subsist in itself into that which does subsist in itself. Hmm. It embodies meanings and changes that which does not subsist in itself into that which does subsist in itself. This is philosophical cryptic speak, okay? What is a quality that does not subsist by itself? I'll tell you, colors and temperature. Like if you say red, someone will ask you red what? A red chair, a red pencil, red lips, red blood? What are you talking about? You can't just say red, right? So these are called the accidents. An accidental thing in philosophy is that which cannot subsist by itself. It has to inhere in an object. If I say hot or cold, you say hot what? A hot bathtub or a cold wind? What do you mean, hot or cold what? It has to inhere in something. In imagination, the realm of imagination, hot can inhere by itself. Cold can be a thing by itself. Colors can subsist by itself, without like not even as something like red air or blue air. If I look at the sky, the blueness subsists in the atmosphere. There doesn't need to be atmosphere in imagination. Blue can be by itself. How? I have no idea because that's impossible. So that's the manifestation of the impossible in imagination. It gives form to that which has no form. It turns the impossible into the possible. It exercises free disposal in affairs as it wills. Since imagination possesses such non-delimitation, right? So that means like unlimitedness. It's unlimited. Though it is a creature created by God, what do you think about the creator who created it and gave it its capacity? How can you wish to judge that God is determined, sorry, is delimited? How can you wish to judge that God is delimited and say that God is not capable of doing the impossible? Yet you witness in yourself imagination's power over the impossible, though imagination is one of God's creatures. Yes, Irvina, go ahead.
Thank you so much. It just caught my attention that it said there is no world, more perfect world than the world of imagination. And we talked, I think, that there is the material world, the world of imagination, and then it's the spiritual world and the other ones, you know, the one that are called Hazrati, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how come that there is no world no more sorry, that there is not a world more perfect than this one. And the second question is that it says it is the origin of the cosmos. Could you elaborate on that? Thank you.
Yeah. So we talked about this last time when we said that imagination reflects the situation of reality itself. Because reality is ambiguous. That's what it is. And nothing can demonstrate to you the truth of reality more clearly than imagination, since imagination itself is ambiguous. That is its very nature. That's what it is. It's ambiguity. And therefore, that leads us to understand what the radical ambiguity of existence is. That is its origin, right? That is its reality, because origin also means reality. So imagination, so the cosmos' reality is ambiguity. What demonstrates that? Imagination. Why is imagination the greatest level? Because it's the one that brings everything together. So we exalt the quality that's called gathering or all comprehensiveness, and jama. Otherwise, your body would not have a spirit, and your spirit would not have a body. It's that which brings things together. And certainly, what makes it the mightiest level is its ability to manifest the impossible. The physical realm cannot manifest the impossible. The spiritual realm, I think, also cannot manifest the impossible. So certainly, the most perfect level is that which can manifest all levels, possible and impossible. And I would dare say the necessary being too, in some way. Yeah, good, Hannah. Didn't he say that the barzakh is the most perfect world? Yeah, so barzakh and the world's imagination are the exact same things. They are synonyms. Good, yeah. Barzakh and world of imagination are synonyms. Yes. Why? Because imagination is that which is ambiguous. What's ambiguous? When you're in between two situations or two concepts or things, so that what makes you ambiguous is your inability to identify yourself except in relation to what you're in between. What's barzakh? The in between, in between two different worlds. Is that okay, Rabina?
Yes, thank you so much. But I have another question though, but maybe it's for another time. What would
Sure.
the intermediate world be between the world of meanings and the other world, you know? Is there another barzakh? You understand what I mean?
So he describes, but what is this other world that you're describing? So he describes 5 levels, right? Physical world, world of spirits, world of imagination, then the world, the realm of God's knowledge. That's a realm in itself. The ayan, so there's the world of the ayan thabita, which is the true nature and reality of all things. Last and final world is insan kamil, perfect man, perfect woman. Perfect man, perfect woman, right? Perfect man, perfect woman bring all realities together into his or herself. That's the most perfect level. Yeah. So, if you're saying what's the other world between the world of imagination, I think, or did you say barzakh? I think.
Yeah.
Remind me, Ravina, what did you say?
So I said, for instance, between the
So,
world
what is?
of Kamil and the world of Ayan al-Thabita, is there any barzakh or the intermediate world between these two too?
Yeah, 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 yes, yes. There must be countless worlds in between them, but they're not like categorical worlds. There can only be like five major categories, according to what I know from Ibn Arabi. But in between them, yeah, you get countless worlds in between that share something in common. I have no doubt about that. Like, what's in between the physical world and the world of imagination, like our psyche, our psychological state? I'm sure there's many worlds between them, but they have something, but they'll share something in common. You understand? There can't be infinite categories.
I understand. But isn't it weird that
Okay.
Insan al-Kamil has in itself the world of imagination? So how can the world of imagination be the greatest one while the Insan al-Kamil contains it in him or herself?
Yeah, that's like a mysterium, a paradox, if you will. That's something to think about. I'm sure in other places, Ibn Arabi will say, Insan Kamil is the greatest level. I'm sure he'll say that in other places too. But he's just telling you like why level of imagination is the greatest level relative to world of spirits and physical world.
Hmm.
I think you're spot on about the Insan Kamil 2 Irvina, because Abu Zaid Bastami said about the heart, the spiritual heart, that it's so vast, or his heart is so vast, that if you were to, if, so he says about himself, if you were to put 100 million thrones of God, what's the throne of God? The throne of God is the universe and cosmos. If you took 100 million universes and cosmoses, what's the throne of cosmos? I have no idea. 100 million cosmos and put into my heart, it would just go into the tiniest core of my heart and I would not notice it. I would not notice it.
Yeah.
So you're completely right about that, Ravina. And then also, I think in my mind, I think of these Hindu traditions where certain yogis sit, but they're like gods, they're actual deities, but they sit in a yogic position and they can create entire planets and worlds with their minds. That's not impossible in Ibn Arabi's framing, by the way. That's totally possible. And it's such an extraordinary thought. Um, and then it also reminds me of in Buddhism, they have something called a kiliokosm. Have you come across this word? It's pretty new to me. Kiliokosm, right? So in Buddhism, you have like you have this branch of Buddhism called Pure Land Buddhism. Pure Land Buddhism, and it's a branch of Buddhism that focuses on the different worlds that you will reincarnate in when you die and are born again. Because it focuses on the idea that there's like countless worlds. So a heliocosm is 1,000 worlds. So what they talk about is something called a tri-heliocosm or a tree-heliocosm. So if a heliocosm is 1,000 worlds, a tree-heliocosm is 3,000. But it's not 3,000 in number. It's more like three sets of 1,000. One set is small, one set is medium, and one set is very large, right? And there's like countless heliocosms where certain Buddhas rule over a certain world, and they're the center of that world. And it's through their power that that world subsists, right? And so you go to that particular Buddha Pure Land, and each one has its own specific characteristics. Anyways, that's a whole other subject. I digress. Um, okay.
Yes.
Where was I? Oh, right. So about accidents. Okay. Um, okay. You do not doubt that that what you see when imagination embodies meanings for you. Uh, sorry, you do not doubt what you see when imagination embodies meanings for you, showing them to you as self-subsistent individuals. In the same way, God will bring the works of the children of Adam on the day of judgment, even though they're accidents, arad, as self-subsistent forms placed in the scale to establish justice. So anyone who knows religion knows what he's talking about. He's just going through a logical argument, showing you that this is real. And he can actually prove logically that it is real. Like, if anyone has any idea what he's talking about, right? If you did a bad work, so like for example, hoarding money, and not sharing with the poor who are harmed by your what's the word? Not just greediness, your miserliness. Okay, your money. So your work. It doesn't even have to be your money. Your greediness comes to you on the day of judgment and says, "I am your greed," literally, in the form of a snake, and then tortures you, right? And things happen. Or you have like a wonderful characteristic like generosity. Then generosity comes to you on the day of judgment and says, I am your generous acts. You used to do this, this, and that. And this is a beautifully perfumed man or woman who comes to assist you. Right? So that's what this is all about. Uh, and then they're brought into the scale to establish justice. He will bring death, even though it is a relationship, farther than the accidents from embodiment, in the form of a salt-colored ram. So notice he doesn't say the angel of death. He will bring death itself. There will be a ram you see, a goat ram you will see on the day of judgment, and that is death itself. Even though death is like a relationship, it's not a thing. And the angel of death is a thing, but death isn't a thing. But he will take death and make it into a thing, which is impossible. Here he means that it is extremely clear. So he describes it as salt colored, that is white. Then all the people will recognize it. Um, and then what happens is that John the Baptist, he slaughters that ram. So then someone calls out that, oh, people of heaven, death has died, and you will die nevermore. And someone calls out to the people of the fire, oh, people of the fire, death has been slaughtered. You will never leave the fire ever, and you'll never die, right? So that's what happens on the day of judgment. Then all people will recognize it. So this is an impossible thing to create. So where is the judgment of the rational faculty about God and the corruption of its interpretation? That weird. And we finish that chapter. So we can go on to the supreme barzakh, the supreme isthmus. Any questions? Let's check out the chat room. So having a limited capacity for imagination would account for a serious flaw. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hmm. What do you mean by that, Tina? I think I agree with you. But could you explain a bit more?
Yeah, I was hesitating to call it a sin, but or put in other words to be more positive, perhaps about it. That since we're here to improve ourselves, that it could be a way of taking into account that precious value of imagination that we have learned from the chapters we've seen, that it's something that could definitely be worked on, so as to escape from the flaw if it could be seen as a flaw.
The flaw being a limited imagination. I have no doubt. Sorry, tell me if I'm correct, because tell me if I understood you. There's a serious interconnection between ethics and imagination. There really is, and the two are interlinked. Is that related to what you're saying?
Yeah, that's even more interesting, I would say, because sometimes you get the impression that, oh, you shouldn't, and it goes back to the discussion about imagination not being the same as we usually intend with the word as such, but that imagination can actually be something that helps us improve, and especially if it has this connection with ethics, because of course that's part of improving your behavior and being true and all that. So yeah, um, it's a good answer.
No, that's absolutely it. That's absolutely it. Thank you so much for bringing it up. Why are they interconnected? Because someone who has good ethics has the sense that God's provision is wide and vast. Even if you don't use that religious language, you think that like there's no need for me to hoard things, for example. So you have an imaginative capacity to include other people. By definition, I can imagine other people benefiting from what I'm benefiting from. So why should I be miserly? I can use my imaginative capacity to be inclusive of other people. Whereas a miser, by definition, his imaginative capacity is limited because he can't imagine anyone beyond himself. That's a definite limitation. That's the very definition of a literal limitation. He can't go beyond himself. So his imagination is, of course, thereby limited. The two are completely intertwined. Generous people have a greater capacity for imagination. People of greater nobility, people of greater sacrifice, have a greater capacity for imagination. And certain people who are besieged by evil oppressors in the world, they have a creative capacity for survival, too. It's completely interlinked. Whereas the oppressors can't imagine doing anything other than wiping out an indigenous population because their imagination is limited to a very limited notion of survival. I can't survive unless these people are dead. And I can't imagine anything beyond this life. So I better make it count now. Yeah, completely. This is an extraordinary topic. There's definitely an interconnection between imagination and ethics. No doubt about it. It reminds me when Surah Yasin came to rescue Ibn Arabi. That's exactly it, Irvina. Thank you so much. And then on the day of judgment, Surah Baqarah comes in the form of clouds, sheltering people from the extreme heat when they used to recite Surah Baqarah, and so on and so forth. And certainly each surah has its own form. No doubt about it. That's Ibn Arabi, and also Irvina, just to add to that, each surah is its own person. So maybe on the day of judgment, the Quran comes and says, "Why did you neglect me? You didn't used to read me, right?" So each surah is an actual being. Does Ibn Arabi have any advice on how to improve our imagination? He must. He must. But nothing comes to my mind right now. But the imagination, Sidi Aqil, is connected to presence. Any advice he has on imagination is connected to presence. So we would have to look at his advice on how to have presence with something. You bring it forth to your mind, you call it forth to your mind, you summon it forth to your mind, an image of that thing to your mind, and you have presence with it, and you have awe of it. So we're talking about God, for example, right? Any image of God that comes to your mind in any form, you sit with that image and you have awe of it, and you concentrate on it. Um, for 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 sure. And there's many advices I'm sure that can be given on how to improve our imagination, and I'm very much in need of it as well. Imagination is the opposite of limitation. So don't limit yourself to any particular kind of thing. You have to have a very capacious personality. You have to be quite capacious, um, you know, and willing to entertain different things. But I'd love to discuss that in the chat room because there'll be people who know better than me. Wouldn't imagination be connected to the nafs, which gets inspired? Yeah, of course. Um, the ability of imagination, because the nafs itself is in between spirit and body. So the nafs itself is in an imaginative intermediary state, right? No, and then the nafs the human psyche has a faculty of imagination. So in the macrocosm, imagination is a cosmological level. It's an actual cosmological level that's out there. In the microcosm is an image of the macrocosm. So in the microcosm, we have our own faculty of imagination that gives form to different meanings. I've been looking at autism and free will. How does a diagnosis affect one's ability to imagine a life beyond their diagnosis? That's such an excellent question. Um, that book I took a picture of in the chat room, that's literally what it talks about, right? How do you like you but its main point is that you absolutely can imagine a life beyond your diagnosis. Absolutely, right? You are not limited to your diagnosis. Like one of the points of the book is like you could treat your character as an sorry, not character, but you can treat yourself, your identity as an avatar, as kind of like a character player. Like you're not necessarily it. You're something much more than that, right? And that frees you up in terms of how you interact with other things in life. And that's a long discussion. Um, but yeah, but that book does a good job of talking about it. Um, but 100%, the diagnosis does not limit you to imagining other possibilities. As other people would like probably note, it in a way is just redirecting you in another direction, right? But the short answer is that it does. How does a diagnosis affect one's ability to imagine a life? It does not affect it in a completely negative way. Um, you can absolutely go beyond it for sure. But if you're like patient, and you understand why you have it, you have to understand what is the purpose of you having it too, right? And that's a personal journey where you undertake a personal journey of self-discovery, and you understand what is this thing saying to you? What is this diagnosis saying to you? And what are you meant to be doing with it, right? So that requires a bit of introspection and self-discovery, and therefore self-knowledge. Okay, guys, can someone take over for me now? We've got about 15 minutes left-ish. Let me see if we can finish the section or not. Okay, maybe we can. All right, let's get it started. Can someone take over for me, please?
I'll have a go since nobody else jump in. So
Bismillah.
I'm reading Bismillah Rahim. So yeah, I'm following the screen this time. I haven't got my book today. So anyway, Bismillah Rahim, the Supreme Barzakh.
Got it.
Being is one and changeless, while the existent things never remain still for an instant. The source of this constant agitation must be sought in the relationship between God and nothingness, a relationship which is made possible by the Barzakh, which stands between the two. To differentiate this supreme Barzakh, al-Barzakh al-A'la, or Barzakh of Barzakhs, from the Barzakh which lies between the world of the spirits and the world of corporeal bodies, and which corresponds to the soul in the microcosm, we will refer to it simply as the Barzakh. The Barzakh is known by many names, one of which, non-delimited imagination, has already been discussed in some detail. Others include the cloud, the breath of the All-Merciful, the real through whom creation takes place, the universal reality, nature, and the reality of the perfect man. These are not exact synonyms, since each is employed within a specific context and does not necessarily overlap with the others in all cases. So then we've got the cloud. The Prophet ﷺ was asked, where did our Lord come to be before he created the creatures? He replied, he came to be in a cloud, neither above which nor below which was any air. Ibn al-Arabi explains that the word amr means a thin cloud surrounded by air. By describing the cloud in this fashion, the Prophet ﷺ informed his listeners that it is different from any cloud they have seen or heard described. He negated the air so that they would know that it is not similar to ordinary clouds in every respect. Normally, clouds are pushed this way and that by the air that surrounds them. But, oh, where am I? I'm stuck on but.
But by but by but by
I can't
negating
see
the air.
anything. My screen. Oh, okay. All right, found it. By negating the air, the Prophet ﷺ showed that nothing controls the cloud other than God, since it is the nearest of existent things to God. The before mentioned in the hadith has nothing to do with time, but is employed to get a point across. It denotes a relationship through which the listener will be able to understand. This hadith is normally translated, he was in a cloud, but Ibn al-Arabi makes it clear that he came to be, a meaning equally allowable by the Arabic, is how he understands it. He tells us that there are 5 instances in which God comes to be, according to the Quran and the hadith. First, he's coming to be in the cloud, which is what we just mentioned. 2, coming to be in the throne, as indicated by his words, the All-Merciful sat upon the throne. 3, coming to be in the heaven, as indicated by the words, our Lord descends each night to the heaven of this world. 4, coming to be in the earth, as in his words, he is God in the heavens and the earth. And 5, an all-inclusive coming to be, since he is with the existent things in all their levels, wherever they might come to be. As he explained in relation to us with his words, he is with you wherever you come to be. All of these are relationships in keeping with his majesty, without asking how, without declaring him similar, and without conceptualization. Within the cloud, the cosmos in its entirety takes shape. The cloud is non-delimited imagination, since it gives form to all engendered things. Every existent thing becomes manifest within it, so it is called God's manifest in the words, he is the first and the last, the manifest and the non-manifest.
Thank you, Hannah.
You're welcome.
The cloud is a good analogy to God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to what he does. Because if you look at in the microcosm, your own cloud, which is the breath coming from your mouth, the breath contains all the letters of the alphabet of every language. It's only when you vocalize the word from your breath that the breath gives form to a specific word. So a word is just a delimited cloud, whereas your breath is a non-delimited word, right? So the cloud is the whole cosmos. It's the whole of existence. So every single shape you find within it is the word is an entification. It's just some sort of delimited form that comes out of the cloud. We were all from this cloud. If we use like really reductive scientific language, we'd say we're all stardust. But that's not what he's saying here. This is much more subtle than stardust. But that's the closest analogy, right? So everything that takes shape within this cloud, which is the breath of the All-Merciful, Nafas al-Rahman, right? Anna, go ahead. Thank you so much. Or otherwise, if someone else wants to carry on. Irvina, please. Thanks so much.
I can do it. Hannah is not doing it.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I had my thing was muted. If you
Oh,
go,
okay.
Arabina, you go ahead. Go on.
No, no, please.
Do you want me to carry on? Oh, that's silly me. All right then. Okay. Though Ibn al-Arabi usually maintains that the cloud is identical with the breath of the All-Merciful, sometimes, as in the following passage, he distinguishes between the two and says that the cloud comes into existence through the breath. Contiguous imagination derives from one of the faces of non-delimited imagination, which is the all-comprehensive presence and the all-inclusive level. This cloud becomes configured within the breath of the All-Merciful, inasmuch as the All-Merciful is a God, not inasmuch as he is only all-merciful. All existent things become manifest within the cloud through be, or one hand, or two hands. In contrast, the cloud itself becomes manifest only through the breath. Were it not for the fact that the word breath has come in the law, we would not have applied the term, though we knew the reality. The root of the breath is the property of love.
The meaning of sorry, Hannah, just 1 second. So the meaning of one hand or two hands is that's the hand he uses to it's the hand of creation, right? I created Adam with both my hands. One hand is found in the hadith where it says he has written the Torah on the tablet, the lawh, with one hand, right? Where he plants a tree is planted in the garden with his hand. It's called the tree of Tuba, right? So that happens within the cloud. But the cloud itself comes to be through what? Through the breath, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Hannah. Thank you.
The root of the breath is the property of love. Love has a movement within the lover, while breath is a movement of yearning toward the object of love. And through that breathing, enjoyment is experienced. And God has said, as has been reported, I was a treasure but was not known, so I loved to be known. Through this love, breathing takes place, so the breath becomes manifest and the cloud comes into being. As the barzakh, the cloud.
Thank you, Hannah. So literally, sorry, Hannah. So literally, the breath is an exhalation. It's actually a cosmic sigh. That breath, which gives birth to everything, is literally a cosmic sigh of yearning towards the created things. That's what it is. And so he describes it as love, a primordial kind of love and a primordial sigh. Guys, I want to leave it there because we're not going to finish the section, right? So let's just stop here, page 126, okay? Any questions?
No, I just wanted to say that was beautiful how you summarized that. Breath is an exhalation of a cosmic sigh of yearning towards the created things. That was just lovely. Thank you.
Allah barak fiki. And because he actually describes that in another section, and he tells you the whole mythological story between the divine names and why that breath comes about. Yeah, it's marvelous, actually.
Sorry, I just interrupted. Sorry, Astaghfirullah. But I also thought what we were reading just now was sort of echoing back to Vina's questions about, the Insan Kamil and all the different types of barzakhs, and are there sort of seem to be referring to that somehow, the questions that Vina was asking earlier.
Well, it gives rise to those levels, 100%. Yeah, exactly. It's that yearning and breath that gives rise to the things, and the things exist in different levels. So then the different levels come to be through that breath and yearning. And then that movement is love as well. There's a cosmological aspect to it. In fact, he conceives of everything in terms of love. Like when Musa alayhi salam was running away from Pharaoh and the Egyptians when he slayed the man, it wasn't from fear of the repercussions. It was for love of the souls that he was carrying in his bosom and love of salvation. And so that's why, since love is at the root of the origin of the cosmos, every single thing is a habib and a mahbub, is a lover and a beloved. Yes, Tina, go ahead.
Sorry. I don't understand the passage. Were it not for the fact that the word breath has come in the law, we would not have applied the term. So in law as in Sharia, or in what way breath has come in the law?
Yeah, exactly. Law means, in this case, hadith. So, so the word law means sharia, and sharia is a catch-all word for the sources of law we use in Islam, Quran, hadith, and the consensus of the companions. So what the companions said. So it means Quran and hadith mainly, right? So it's the fact that the Prophet ﷺ used the word nafas, breath. Had he not used it, everyone would have used it.
Okay, yeah.
And he makes that point because it's by following the law you get closer to reality and the discussion of reality. So, it's like he's saying that there is a slight differentiation between what a breath and a cloud is. By saying like really it's more of a cloud. But we can use the word breath because it comes in the law, which means there's a different dimension to that cloud, which functions like a breath as well. Yeah, so it's that kind of nuance. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And let me stop the recording, inshallah.
So can I just ask